Hello and welcome back to Popcorn Chat. I hope you guys are doing well. In this week's video we're doing a Q&A which I put up on my Instagram, so make sure you go and follow me over there. And I asked people to send me questions relating to film and TV, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to answer some questions that people sent in. Also, I'd like to point out this mug that my friend got me for my birthday recently, which has the branding on. I mean, if you'd like that as merch on the channel, I'm sure we can get that sorted. So I'm on brand, guys, really. And you could be too. If you want the merch, let me know. So my first question comes from Aaron J Watches, and I'm not sure that he actually understood the assignment. When I asked it to be film and TV related, he asks me what's my favourite colour. Now Aaron, it's not film or TV related, but I will be honest and say my favourite colour is probably blue. Sort of a dark blue, but I also quite like a turquoise blue. So there you go. It's not film or TV related, but blue's my favourite colour. So Ryan the Nixon asked me who are my top 3 favourite directors, and this is always sort of changing really, but I had to think about it, and in no particular order I would have to say Denis Villeneuve, David Fincher and Danny Boyle. So this is from the wonderful Biscuit and Blu-rays, and they asked me, what is the first film you remember watching? Now for this one, it kind of sort of doubles up as my first sort of cinema experience, and that I remembered, and that is Mulan, Disney's Mulan, which came out in 1998. So I must have only been 3, maybe not even that. I remember seeing it at the cinema. It was a fairly empty room with my mum. Must have been a weekday, because obviously there before I went to school or anything like that. And I think I remember having a pretty good experience of it really. There was nothing I remember being terrified about it at all, but I remember the experience. Like I had this sort of image of me sort of in the back. We were quite high up in the seats, and we just had it to ourselves, and yeah, that was my first sort of experience that I remember sort of watching a film really. So Brian Talks Films asked me, are you going to watch Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass? I've heard of this film, I've seen the poster for a while. I obviously know that Mike Flanagan is quite a recent sort of horror sort of filmmaker, who did the Haunting of Hill House series, which I've yet to watch. They did Doctor Sleep as well. But no, I'm definitely going to be watching this. At the moment it is out now, so I'll either be watching it tonight or some point this week. So I'm interested to see how this one plays out, and I'm expected to be a little bit scared, to be honest. Chris in the corner asks, what is your favourite film screenplay ever? I love your content, keep it up. Thank you very much, Chris. I guess my favourite screenplay, not that I read many, but in terms of, I guess, of the narrative and sort of the dialogue, I think would have to be The Truman Show. I think this is a film that you can revisit again and again, and you can pick apart certain elements of the dialogue and the sort of the look at the way in which we monitor sort of humans, and the element of control and freedom. So I think there's so many ways you can read it, and I think that's why it's one of the, sort of the best screenplays, because it has so many layers to it. So that's why it's one of my favourites. So my next question is from Flick Loving Chick, and they ask, what 4 movie/TV characters do you relate to most? Now, if anyone watched my sort of Buffy versus Angel video on the channel, you will know that Buffy Summers is one of my sort of all-time characters that, you know, is relatable to me. So Buffy is definitely up there. I also sort of have this relationship with The Simpsons that I love, and I think Lisa Simpson is always an iconic character in terms of what she stands for. She always wants to push herself in terms of learning things, doing what's right. She's vegetarian, so there's many elements to her that I think, you know, are relatable to myself, especially. This is probably a bit more of an obscure character, but someone else that I would relate to would be Oliver Tate from the film Submarine. I sort of love the film as a whole, and I think it sort of came to me in a time when I was listening to sort of the likes of Arctic Monkeys, and Alex Turner is heavily in the soundtrack of this film, and sort of the indie sort of style of it, and I think this is the same sort of age that I saw it, so there's so many relatable elements to it, and I guess, you know, that time in your life you can understand where that sort of protagonist is coming from. So Oliver Tate would also be on that list. And then I guess sort of more of a fun one is Dee from Always Sunny. Always Sunny is a programme that I watched sort of last year in lockdown, and I sort of fell in love with it really. And I'm yet to do a big rewatch, but I really love Dee and the sort of the physical humour that she brings to the dynamic. And she does challenge a lot of the sort of patriarchal sort of hierarchy within the friendship group. So I do like that element. That's a bit more of a fun answer, I guess. So those are my 4 characters that I'd say are most relatable to me, at least in some capacity. So Brian Talks Films also asked me another question, and they asked, what are some of your favourite films you've seen so far in 2021? I guess I'm going to answer this as though they are new releases. I think I did a video recently about talking about some of my favourite films that I've seen, a mixture of both new and just sort of first watches, so you can go and check that one out. But in terms of just a handful of some of the ones that have been released this year, I think up there has to be The Dig, which came out early this year. I guess a bit more of a fun answer would be The Mitchells and the Machines. I thought that was a really good sort of family-friendly, fun film. With, you know, some jokes for like the adults and stuff. I thought it was a brilliant all-round film. Then another film that I would add to that list would be The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. Had a bit of a sort of surge on sort of time loop films. I watched this and Palm Springs, and I think this one is just a little bit more feel-good, and the outlook of the characters a lot more positive in terms of the, you know, the situation that they are sort of put in. So I think that one's definitely sort of a feel-good film as well. So the final question we have in this video is from timwickens.tv, and they ask, what do you think is the most overrated film of the 90s? This is a really interesting question because the 90s is one of my favourite sort of decades within sort of cinema really, but in terms of overrated film, I guess my answer is going to get a little bit of a backlash because I know a lot of people love the actor that's the lead in this film, but a film that stands out for me as I think is overrated personally is Forrest Gump. I ultimately am not a massive Tom Hanks fan. I'm allowing for, you know, ripples of gasps and shock at that statement, but Forrest Gump, I think it's okay. Once you've seen it, you've seen it. So I'm going to have to go with Forrest Gump as my most overrated film from that decade. Well, that's all the questions that I have for this video. If you guys enjoyed this format, I enjoyed doing it, so hopefully we can do a few more in the future while we're popping questions on Instagram, Twitter, wherever they may be. Or if you have some, you know, whilst you're over here on the YouTube channel, always free to drop them in the comments and I will add them to the potential next Q&A video. So that's it for this week's video. I'll be back next week with another review, and hopefully I'll be able to get to the cinema this week. So I'll be talking about some newer films in the next coming week. So hopefully I'll see you back on this channel, and I'll see you for another popcorn chat.